Today we are talking about methods of manifestation with Lacy and Phillips. Lacy is manifestation expert, and for me I was very interested to learn more about it because I understand the concept, but I never really knew there's like a method or any type of specific practice that can be applied towards that. So I know that manifestation and energy is out there, but I am really excited to learn more about it. So I'm gonna join Lacy in.
Hi, how's it going?
Good. How are you, Lacey?
Really well, thank you. I'm so excited. Thank you so much for thinking of me and having me on, and
Of
always
course.
excited to talk about this topic.
Amazing. Okay, so honestly, the reason why I really wanted to do a live about it because, as I mentioned in the intro, I really don't know much about it. I never really dug deeper to understand if there's any methods or techniques or how can someone apply to it into their daily life. The first time I think I got introduced to any kind of energy attraction manifestation was after reading The Secret
Mhm.
very long time ago. And to me back then it felt like a little too wishy-washy, if that makes sense.
Abstract, yeah,
Exactly. Yes. Sorry. Abstract
absolutely.
would probably be the more proper word to use. Yes, abstract. So, and I've never really dug back into it since. So I would love for you to tell us a little bit about what it is and just how to approach the whole concept of manifestation.
Absolutely. So I'll give a little overview because I, like you, I think I was 17 and a half, and I didn't know much about manifestation at all, but I was an actress and a model. And I think like all anybody in the arts, I had no control over my monetary existence. So
Mm-hmm.
I had a psychic. My mom always had this intuitive that said, check out this book, read it and follow it to a T, and you'll manifest everything you want. And I won't even mention the book because I did. And then that led me down the rabbit hole of The Secret and the Hicks books and, the Gabby Bernsteins and all of that, which, I give them a lot of credit. However, I wasn't
Mm-hmm.
manifesting really big things, just small kismet things. And then I started to notice that I would manifest really big things, but not in that way. I mean, big things. It was like my ex-partner down to long blonde surfer hair and a Parisian mom, an artist, or
Like
I ended
very
up
detailed.
so detailed, and I was like,
Mm.
whoa. I started to think when anybody's experienced a manifestation, I'm like, am I a witch? What's happening? But come to find out, I pushed everything aside that I had ever learned, and I said, I'm going to watch what I do when that always results in what I want. And I started to
Mhm.
learn that it actually had nothing to do with positivity. And I like to tell anybody in my community, I'm like, I'll debunk the positivity thing right now, because if you look at narcissists, they're some of the best manifestors because they really truly believe they're worth it and they're right. So I started to realize that what actually is, quote unquote, the law of attraction is self-worth. So when you step into your self-worth, that's what magnetizes what you want to you. And so I kind of,
Getting
I really
goosebumps right
studied how,
now.
what's that?
I'm getting goosebumps because I had such a, and
Yay.
I'll tell you a little bit about it later. But
Ooh.
yes, please continue.
That's a really common reaction, in fact. And so to wrap it up, I started to honor gifts that I have that I had always pushed to the side. So I can read energy, I can channel. It's like unbelievable how I can tell, like, if this happens, this will follow. And so I really
Mm-hmm.
started to come up with my own formula around manifestation. And I realized that not much of it, there's a couple of things. So not positivity, I don't believe is the true law of attraction. I think it's self-worth. But on top of that, I also don't believe that thoughts are what control our reality, because if you think about it, we're thinking in complete contradiction all the time, right? It's like, I love this, I hate this, I'm great, I suck, I'm, all the things. So
Mm-hmm.
we're just not that powerful. What I started to learn, it's actually very simple psychology, is that we're actually manifesting from our subconscious mind, our limbic brain. So that means everything we imprinted from the years 0 to 7, 14 if I'm being generous, is continually looping. And where we learned that we had high self-worth, we saw that modeling, or we witnessed it, or we experienced that through peers, caretakers, teachers, media, anything around us. Where we have
Mm-hmm.
high self-worth looping, we manifest that very simply. Where we have low self-worth, what I call blocks, we actually have to unblock out of that. And then there was a third piece that's, really different about our process than what I like to call like the new age sort of spiritual bypass method, is a lot of that talks about, which you probably remember from The Secret. It's like visualize what you want into existence. And so our work is really foundational with my energetic gifts, psychology, and neuroscience. And so what I kind of started to realize through neuroscience, because of mirror neurons, I mean, I used to visualize, I was a waitress at the Laugh Factory, this comedy club in Los Angeles. And I'd be making like $300 a week as a waitress. And I would be visualizing my Malibu home, my sauna with my infinity pool. And let me tell you, it wasn't coming back then. And so I noticed that actually what helps us expand our subconscious limiting beliefs is when we see to believe. So I call these expanders. So it's surrounding yourself with, or finding, whether it's on social media, friends of friends, in real life, somebody that you identify with very closely to.
Sorry, I don't want you to think I'm moving around, but I'm writing.
No, take notes. That's what this is for. Anybody else, feel free to as well. Because this really works, I promise you. This is like the one thing that I like to tell people. I'm like, go check out on our homepage what's called the motivation. And it's where we've taken every single manifestation that our community and members have manifested, and it'll take you days to get through them all. Yes. So back to the expanders, what we have to do is find somebody or many people, I call them fragments, where they only have little pieces of what we want. We have to find those, and they were where we are now. We really identify with them, and they've gone on to have, embody, or are successful in what we want. When we see that through our mirror neurons, which then communicates to our subconscious mind, we have a very specific moment that I call an aha moment, and it goes, oh, and it's kind of like this. It's like, if they can have that, I can have this. Or if they can do that, I can have this. And that has nothing to do with ego or anything. It's just us, our low self-worth, believing now and witnessing for the first time that that's possible. So that actually creates the space for our manifestations to come through. So that's kind of what really sets us apart from the many of the things that I tried as well, which were very abstract, which was like The Secret and all of that.
Okay, I have a few questions.
Please.
So you mentioned how manifestation is not so much about positivity, but more about self-worth. And you mentioned how our self-worth is formed, you know, between the ages of 0 to 7, which is so scary because I have 3 kids and I'm just like, oh my God.
Oh, I know.
I hope they'll be okay.
That starts the work's like, oh my gosh. But I try to tell everybody this. I'm like, we're human and we're going, and I don't mean to
100%. That's part of their journey. I do what I can.
We're gonna fuck our kids up.
They're gonna have their own thing happening. But you know, I feel like for me, one of my passions and what some of the subjects that I talk about is that, you know, finding your own identity, realizing your self-worth. I think that for me as a child, I was very, very insecure and I could never put a finger on it because it's not like I grew up in a household that, you know, wasn't supportive or, you know, didn't show me that things are possible. You know, my mother always very much encouraged me, but I feel like for some reason I was kind of like, it's weird. It's like I was, you know, pre-positioned to that kind of negativity and lower self-worth. So for me, it took a while to build it through actions and things like that. So a lot of the time, people are like asking me, how do you build your self-worth? Because my audience is a lot of, you know, the younger women. And for me, I mean, I went through a journey of my own life and things that came my way. But do you have maybe a few tips when it comes to realizing that self-worth and finding it for yourself?
Yeah, and I can certainly relate to exactly what you were talking about. And I think just as women in general, there's so much that's coming at us from the media, cultural programming. I mean, you name it, that we're like, how do we have any true, not only self-worth, but like getting back into like the true law of attraction. I think the universe's only objective in this lifetime is to push us back into our whole worthy, authentic selves, like you were saying, that I think we're born as. And then as we're going through the world, we have pain, shame that we witness or experience that makes us build kind of this onion layer that we have to pull apart to arrive back at that place. We already have it in us, that self-worth and that authenticness. And so I too, like you, have been on a journey and I've tried so many things in the self-help world. And so kind of the tool that I found that shifts it the quickest, and that's what we actually use in our programs is hypnosis. And I developed my very own process with hypnosis. And so for anybody who's not familiar, hypnosis is just like a very deep meditation. It's not like the stuff that we see in movies.
I know, I see like a clock and then...
Yes, I know. Or like, you know, making a rabbit jump out of a hat or something. So
yes.
Nothing like that. It's just a deep meditation where we go from what we are in right now in consciousness into theta. And when we get into theta, the beautiful thing about that, it's just simple neuroscience. Our subconscious mind comes forward where, again, all of that stuff is looping and living, and we're able to very easily see it. And when our subconscious mind is forward, it doesn't know the difference between what's real and not real. So when we're doing my individual process of hypnosis, we're going straight to the block of something we've been triggered with, or a block that we realize is blocking us from manifestation, and we see it, and then we reprogram it. And then from there, we are creating new neural pathways. And I know that seems like, oh my gosh, you know, how did we do that? We actually created a portal specific for your community. So you guys will be able to, you can share that link if you want.
Oh, so
you guys
cool.
Can go in and test it out. And you're going to have these moments where you're like, holy shit, I didn't know what was living down there. Wow, that one specific memory is what I'm still looping on that's blocking me and making me feel like I have low self-worth. So like the way we tackle it is through that. So we take the old blocks, we reprogram them to create these new neural pathways through neuroscience, and then using that model of expansion. So finding those expanders who use you to believe what's possible. And that combination is so profound. So even when we're talking about something like body image, right? And we're really addressing down below in our subconscious mind, all of the messaging we picked up on body image. And then we're going out and we're finding our expanders that reflect a similar body to ours and are embodied and beautiful and sexy, or, you know, whatever makes us feel authentically beautiful. It's a really powerful combination in neuroscience that helps you to just essentially start to project something different, right? The more that we reinforce it. So everybody's going to have a little bit to try.
That's wonderful. Definitely will link that for you guys. For me, I think that, you know, you keep talking about expanders, and I have to say that my train of thought right now is how lucky are we to live right now at a point where, you know, if even I look when I was a teenager or younger girl and I was looking out to find someone that looks like me, or like validation of some kind, or just, you know, in different types of people, you couldn't really find that because everyone were very much of like the celebrities, or, you know, all these people, the supermodel. It was very like a cover. You couldn't really figure out what they are, what are they about, is there anything that's similar, you know, between us. And now we live at a time where, I mean, you have access to so many people, and even celebrities today, you know, it's all about that authenticity, that openness, that documentation of their real life and real emotions.
Yes.
So I think it's just so powerful that we have that today, because I think I think that so many people sometimes you know, we're making social media a villain in a way.
Yeah.
Where, you know, I feel like it really much is, it's up to us to learn the proper tools to use it, because it can be very powerful. You know, just talking about manifesting and just the expanders and seeing what's out there from different people.
I totally agree with you. And you know, like one thing we like to educate on is using your social media. We call it like a subconscious curation, until you do the work on it to really look at why it's triggering. And then from there, really building out that your social media is full of your expanders. Because again, even when we're scrolling through social media, we're getting into a theta state, similar to, you know, when you've been driving and you forget like that you've been thinking and you can't even remember that you passed the last, you know, 5 miles. That's hypnotic. It's the same thing as being in hypnosis. So when we're scrolling through social media and we've really curated it to reflect exactly what we're calling in, that's where it's very powerful. And I think it's such a powerful tool when used right. And just, you know, dovetailing off what you were saying, you know, even think of us, like you and I are so privileged, right? Like in the sense that we have still what's considered societally messaged, like what a beautiful woman is. But what's so cool is to see now in media, we're having this conversation and this shift so that every walk of life can start to have expanders in media, you know, on social media, in magazines, and it's like, please use it. And when you are triggered, and that's one thing I love to really educate on, don't let that energy of a trigger go. You know, and when I'm saying triggered, it's when we're feeling like shame, anger, jealousy, envy. When that comes up, even this little portal that we're going to give your community, take it right away and go take it into one of those hypnosis and see. That's where we start to take our power back subconsciously, that trigger isn't wasted, because it's a really big cue and a blueprint to one of our blocks that's blocking us from manifestation. And we can take that moment and that energy to get down there, rewire it, create that new neural pathway, and start to then project magnetism and manifest.
So that sounds so interesting. I'm really looking forward for that portal. So
I'm excited for you to try it.
I want to make sure that, you know, for people that are, again, maybe just right now getting introduced to it and maybe not ready to jump into places of like going into those deeper emotions and understanding, because it is a scary place. You have to, you know, handle a lot of things. And, you know, sometimes even for me, when I start digging, I have to really evaluate if I'm ready, if I have the capacity to deal with it right now.
Absolutely.
So with manifestation, is there something kind of maybe on a daily basis, like a habit that people can do that they can maybe start introducing into their lives? And once they feel comfortable, they can learn more about it, but something that they can put into practice that will be kind of their own way of manifesting?
Absolutely. It can seem hard, but doable tip that actually will create magnetism right away is the word no. And that seems really...
I love no.
Isn't that? And it's hard, and it's so counteractive to anything you've ever learned in manifestation, right? Because it's positivity, it's being in the vibration or in the vortex, and it's like, the universe rewards us against self-worth is the true law of attraction. So if anybody tuning in right now can take to their journal or even notes in their phone, and you can write out, where are the ways that I'm still being small? Or where are the ways, where in my life am I still committing to things that I don't really believe in or want to be doing just because I'm people pleasing? Anywhere we can start to say no to that, we're creating situational magnetism. So not the huge stuff will come in, but you'll start to notice the little kismet things coming in right away, because the universe is like, oh, look who's stepping into their self-worth. I'm going to reward that. So that's just a great little practice to start doing. And so again, my gift is reading energetics. And then like you know, I was doing these abstract things. I'm like, okay, I have this gift, so I need to turn it into something with verbiage and actionable tools. So boundary, when it comes to manifestation, which is essentially what no is, it's setting a boundary, right? When you take the energetic of boundaries with the universe and you boil it down into something, what a boundary is, it's these three parts. If anybody wants to take this down, it's drawing a line in the sand, right? So it's understanding what you'll no longer do or accept. An example of this would be, maybe there's a requirement to come every Friday night to the family dinner, but you know, you don't have a great relationship with your family and you leave feeling terrible every time. A beautiful situational magnetism you can create is starting to say, I'm only going to go once a month now. And that's going to rear my family's shadow. Everybody's going to get upset. And it's going to be hard for me to process. But I know that if I do that and I I open that space up, other things will be filled in it that I want more of. So maybe I'm calling in partnership or more friendships that allows that space for it, right? So a boundary is one, drawing a line in the sand. So understanding. Two, so it's drawing a line in the sand of what you'll no longer accept. And then two is communicating it. And you don't, again, when you're just starting out with this is something, because I can read energetics, you don't have to be, if you're not ready to communicate the full reason why, because maybe conscious communication is just not even a possibility with your family or the person you're communicating to, you can simply say, I have another obligation, or I'm taking a night class. I don't care what people say.
White lie.
Yeah, you can use white lies. Like, the universe doesn't care about that. It's more concerned with the actionable of stepping into your power. So
Yeah.
that's the second part, is communicating. And then the third is taking action on it. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what a real boundary is. So saying no and setting those boundaries will instantly start to create situational magnetism. And for the person who it's like, it feels very heavy to dig into the past, I understand that, and it can be so overwhelming. And so we always suggest do it side by side if you can with a therapist or your support group, or even just a really conscious group of friends that you can process with, or a friend who can hold space for you. But before
Mm-hmm.
you're ready for that, this is a great little action to put into play.
This is, yeah, I think this is very, very powerful and definitely something that people can start practicing, from small to big aspects of their lives. I
Yeah.
feel like this is something that I've been doing for a while now. I just
Yeah,
didn't
tell us
really,
about your experience.
so speaking specifically about this, what you mentioned right now with boundaries and communicating it in action. So I feel like it's funny, I couldn't really find the right term for what I was doing. So I used something that I thought describes it, and it's the word selfish.
Ah, perfect.
And I think that popped, kind of in my mind over and over again, especially when I became a mother, because
Yeah,
I started noticing that I'm kind of slipping away, and that all of a sudden I'm immersed into a being that is not necessarily authentic to me and the way how I feel, but it's what kind of, I think, society and my mind tells me this is what you need to be now, because you are in a different point in your life. And I think that for me, every time I wanted to say no, I was like, that's really selfish of me, though. I don't want to do this, but it's very selfish. And I don't want to do that. Well, that's selfish. And then I started kind of focusing on that word selfish. And I was sitting there and I'm like, what is wrong with selfish? Like, why selfish is a
ah,
bad word? Because
amen.
it starts to be like, why is it, right? Where is that negativity coming from that is associated with that word? And all of a sudden, the way I was looking at things, it switched for me from being selfish to being like selfish. And when I started talking with my other friends, or especially mom friends, a lot of them would be like, well, how do you find time to do this? And how do you do that? And you travel with your friends. And I'm like, yeah, I'm selfish. And, they would be like, said, no, but it's okay. Let me tell you why it's good to be selfish. Let me explain
I
to you where's
love
that
that.
selfish, what it brings. So for me, that selfish was making sure that I'm preserving that energy, because everything that we do, every conversation that I have, it's energy coming out of me. And I
Absolutely.
have every day, I have this is my energy bowl. And I have to be very specific and very, thoughtful and intentional about where I'm putting that energy to. And for me, that's where that, I was like, this is my selfish. And I keep it to myself, and I really only share that energy with the things that really matter to me, with the things that really, evolve me and just kind of promote the well-being of my life. Because at the end of the day, with my family, when I'm well, when I'm happy, when I'm in my good zone, everyone else around are happy.
Oh, amen. I mean, and what you just said is so applicable in many facets of life. And one thing I really want to point out that I think is it's just a really good magnifying glass to everything we've been talking about. You took in programming, right? And I would say
Mm-hmm.
it's systemic programming, right? You're a
Mm-hmm.
mom, you're the woman, your whole life is now, I don't know culturally, but your whole life is supposed to revolve around your kids and cooking for them and all of that. And you went, wait, this is a narrative that I've taken in, but is it true to my authentic, whole, worthy self? And it's not. And you reframe that. And therefore, I just want you to think back to that time when you made that decision. Did things start to come to you, like opportunities, this gift, this sponsorship? Like, did stuff start to totally come
I'm here
through?
today.
Yeah.
This was the beginning of my selfish was like, hey, I need to create a space for myself to do what I love to do. I have no idea what it is exactly, but let's learn how to use YouTube, right? And
Wow.
that this is where I'm at. So for me, it was something that really been taking me throughout this amazing journey that I've had since I believed in that selfish and I embraced that selfish. It brought me here today. And I feel like I am slowly coming into my own, identity in a very authentic way. And I just think it's so powerful. So I think that's why this, little plan that you mentioned that people can start practicing today, is life-changing. Just from experience, I can,
Yeah.
share that.
And you're an expander. Like you just expanded many people who struggle with that exact same thing and who want to be entrepreneurs, who may be mothers, and that's like this is an exact perfect way to find an expander. So you just highlighted so perfectly initiating that practice, putting that practice into play, and then serving as an expander for other people. And I
Oh,
think that's
thank you.
so
Yay.
beautiful.
And I wanted to tell you one story because for me, that's when it's crazy because I reached out to you about this IG live probably 2 days before this happened, and I was just like, I'm gonna ask Lacy, like, is this manifestation? So I I'm doing social media, and I'm also very passionate about certain like brands that I work with. And there was one particular brand that I just love. It's a product-based brand, and I'm just like, I love what they do. And I've been kind of going back to my team, and I've been saying, I really want to find a way to work together. And we couldn't really figure out a way to work together as influencer and brand, but I was just like putting it out there and constantly writing to, the girl that works on the business development. I was writing to her, I feel like this needs to be something bigger. Like I want to be part of this company one way or another. And after a few days, we're getting like a call and an email and just like a weird connection. And basically that company reached out and they kind of saw my interest, and we're now, in the midst of making something happen. And for me, I remember when we got that call, that email, I was just sitting there and I'm like, this cannot happen. How is this even happening? This is exactly what I wrote as a message to, my team, being like, this is exactly what I want.
Yeah.
So I think that for me is something that you mentioned earlier in our conversation. I think that truly happened because I felt like I truly had something to contribute, that,
Bam.
I felt like there is a value that I can bring and I deserve this.
Yeah.
Where, a lot of the times when I watch things about manifestation or read a little bit about it, there's a lot of things like, mood boards and things like that.
Pretend.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I love
Pretend
that.
you
I mean,
already
it's
have
so
it.
fun and cool,
Yeah.
but I was just like, but it feels a little bit too, I can't explain it, like too,
Abstract, like forcing and abstract and not
yeah,
arrived
forcing
yet.
in a way. Yeah, and
Yeah,
it
I
never
agree.
could pinpoint, that feeling of what it is that I'm supposed to feel when I want to manifest something. And then when that happened, I was like, that's it. That is the feeling, the true feeling of
Yes.
just like, I'm ready for this.
Yeah.
I have what to contribute. So come on, let's get the process going.
Yeah.
And that's exactly that.
Yeah,
So,
there's a
and
few things I want to
yeah.
highlight because it's actually such a good example of manifestation. So number one, you were fully expanded enough. I would argue you've probably seen, the potential of this type of collaboration before, or you've seen enough people do certain things, or now you've done enough to know where your value really lies and how much you can contribute. So that's the expanded piece. And then where you are today, you feel deserving of it. And like you said, I have something big to contribute, and that we're both going to be helping each other. And so that's the worthiness of it. And one thing that I really want to highlight that I think is really beautiful is, so there's something I call them pings. And so they're the little downloads that we get, or the whispers, or the intuition that's like, go try this thing, go do this thing now. I know this is the next step. And you followed it. You talk to your team. You're like, I just know I have this ping, is what I call it. It's just my own terminology that I could kind of put on it. And
Ping is
so,
pretty precise, yes.
and you followed the ping, right? You like put that into action. And then now I think what is really cool, and this is something really important for people to know, is I believe that anytime we are starting to manifest something greater than where we are right now in any terrain of our life, we'll be tested a little bit. And tests can show up as opportunities, or they can show up as triggers. And so often we'll be tested to see, like, will you settle for the smaller version or the low self-worth version of what you settled for in the past? So when you first started the communication with this brand, it was not not like a malicious test, but it was probably the
Mm-hmm.
capacity of which they knew how to collaborate at that point. So they're like,
Mm-hmm.
maybe we could do this. And for you, you're like, no, I just know it's bigger. So you didn't settle. And then
Mm-hmm.
bam, they came back with the bigger thing. And so that is such a perfect outline of manifestation. And notice in that, none of it was pretending.
Mm-hmm.
Like none of it was a vision board. None of it, it was all to do with self-worth, expansion, following your ping, and not settling, which ultimately all at the end of the day just has to do with deservingness and self-worth. And you highlighted it
Mm-hmm.
so perfectly. And that I'm so excited for you. I'm really excited that
Thank
this has come
you.
through because you deserve it. You really deserve it.
Thank you. Oh my God, this was it's just funny that all of these thoughts and all of these, actions and developments happen leading to this conversation because of as you're talking, I'm just like, yes, yes, that happened. Yes, that happened. That I just remember the exact process and the feeling that I've had through it. So I feel like I have such a better understanding of what manifestation is. And I love the fact that, again, as I mentioned, it's not these like, keep a journal, which is obviously helpful. I mean, it's
It's
always helpful
awesome.
to put
Yeah.
things,
Oh, yeah.
in writing or even a mood board. But sometimes I
Yeah.
just felt like whenever I dived into the subject, I always was like, okay, this is A, B, C, D. And I'm like, but is it really going to do anything? Like,
Yeah, totally. I've been there as well. Exactly. I totally understand
so
that.
I feel like this has really touched the base of it all, and really brought it home to me. So I get it.
Yay! I'm so excited. Yeah, and it really that's like the biggest thing that we want to be there for is people. It's like manifestation doesn't have to be frustrating. It doesn't have to be abstract. It's actually really like formulaic in a way, and it's not stuff that's out there. It's all within ourselves. And the one thing I like to tell people is you don't need anything to manifest. I'm somebody who loves spiritual enhancements. I have all the things, the crystals and the stuff, but those are
Hmm.
just enhancements in your life and your spiritual practice. Manifestation all comes down to your subconscious and your self-worth. And we all have control over that. And so that's
Hmm.
the one thing I just want to leave people off on is you can have anything you want. I've worked with now thousands and thousands of people. Anything's possible. I've seen the craziest stuff. You deserve it. You were born innately worthy of it. You're just discovering how to get back into that innate deservingness and expansion.
Ugh, I love it. And I think that now it's a perfect time. We have the time, we have the space to get into that deeper connection with ourselves. So I feel like this is really much happening for a reason, if you choose to believe it or not. So, I mean, now that you gave those tools, I think that it's just a great opportunity for everyone to dive a little bit deeper and to really start their self-worth journey, because that's basically what it is. Once you
It
have
really is
that kind
that.
of,
Yeah.
yeah, once you have that figured out, or at least you're in that journey of it, it's everything else just seems so much more possible and available to you.
Yeah, I agree. It's so true. I'm so grateful. Thank you so much
Oh,
for
thank you,
having me
Lacey. This
on.
was I can't tell you how much energy I feel right now. I think I'm gonna go for a run or something because I'm just like,
Good.
there's just so much going on right now vibrationally inside of me.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lacey. We'll be in touch.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Bye.
Bye.